Coming up today here on the Raiders Report, we're going to look at a Week 4 preview against the Cleveland Browns. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and we're going to be talking about the Week 4 injury report for both sides of the football, keys to the victory for the Silver and Black, and then some predictions at the very end of today's show. If you want to see a lot of stats about how the Raiders offense stacks up against the Browns defense, how the Browns offense stacks up against the Raiders defense, you're in the right place. Now, we have over 176,000 subscribers, and we gained 57 subs yesterday. Every single time I do this show, and I hope when you walk into work, I hope when you go to school, whatever you do, you got to get 1% better. Max says it all the time. So I'm trying to get 58 subs at least on this video. Let's do it for Jackson Powers Johnson. I want to see the rookie this week beat up some people on the offensive line. So when you look at this Week 4 matchup, both teams are 1-2. It's in Las Vegas. The Browns are coming off a heartbreaking loss to the New York Giants. The Raiders are coming off a heartbreak's not even enough of a word, a kick in the nuts type of loss to the Carolina Panthers. And both teams, face it, you need to win. Being 2-2 compared to 1-3, it is a totally different world that you're living in. And when you look at the Raiders offense, how it stacks up against the Browns defense, I mean, let's face it, we got to be able to figure out this running game. Cleveland is a pretty average defense overall. I will say this, they got a lot of injuries. They do have one of the best in the biz in Myles Garrett. But this has got to be a game where the Raiders get it going, not only in that first drive, but they've done a pretty damn good job this season getting some of those numbers and getting some of those yards on that first drive. It's can Luke Getsy do it in the second quarter? Can Luke Getsy do it in the third quarter? This season, the Raiders are one of the best teams in the NFL, scoring in the first quarter. They're also the number one team at scoring in the fourth quarter, but quarters 2 through 3, not a lot of success there. But here's the one thing. We expected the Raiders offense to struggle at least a little bit. The Raiders defense, on the other hand, I mean, I've said that I think that this could be the best defense in the NFL, and they're not even close. This defense just simply needs to be better. Luckily for them, well, when you look at the Browns offense, they have been struggling a lot this season. 31st in the NFL in total yards per game. I really do think that turnovers is going to be a monumental storyline in this one for both sides. And I really want to see how this defense responds to Antonio Pierce saying business decisions. I know AP said that he talked to the team. They kept it inside. But you got to walk around seeing how that defense played last season and seeing what happened last week to the Carolina Panthers, to Andy Dalton. I'm hoping this defense comes out and plays a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and plays, like somebody stole their lunch money. Play with a little bit of respect this week. So here's my question. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, which means this is the number one question that everybody that watches this show, I need you to answer. What's your confidence level in the Raiders to beat the Browns? Scale it from 1 to 10. My answer after this YouTube ad break. I'm going to go with a 5, and quite frankly, I think I have to pick a 5 every single week. The Raiders seem like a team where it's every year, it's not even just this year, where they beat a team that you're like, I can't believe they just beat the Baltimore Ravens. And then the next week, you're like, we're going to go steamroll Carolina, and then they end up dropping that one. Both teams are struggling. Both teams have injuries to definitely some key players. Now, when you look at that laundry list for Cleveland, like we thought that the Raiders were injured, the Browns are missing multiple starters, and they're missing a lot of pieces on that offensive line. I know for a fact that a lot of people were wondering whether or not Myles Garrett was going to be able to play in this one. Missed practice on Wednesday. He was, though, out there on Thursday. That is according to one of the better Browns beat reporters, Mary Kay Cabot. So the fact that Myles Garrett's got literally 3 different types of injuries, the fact that he practiced on Thursday, unless he suffers a setback, he's probably going to be out there. For the Raiders, there was 4 players that I would say a lot of people are wondering whether or not they're going to play. DeCamerion Richardson, he's doubtful against Cleveland. I'd be shocked if he ended up going. He's still battling with that hamstring injury. Antonio Pierce also said that it's very unlikely that he's going to play. For Thayer Munford, this one's a little bit up in the air. If it was up to me, because you're going to be going up against Myles Garrett. And, Myles Garrett's the exact same thing as Max Crosby. An 80%, a 70% Myles Garrett is one of the best defensive players in the league. Because the Raiders have confidence in DJ Glaze, I wouldn't be shocked if Munford doesn't play in this one. DJ Glaze gets a start at right tackle. For Divine Diablo, not going to hold my breath that he's going to be able to go in this one. And then Max Crosby is questionable. I know Max wants to play. You know Max wants to play. But I also know that he's dealing with a high ankle sprain, and high ankle sprains are usually a minimum of 3-4 weeks, depending on how severe it is. He's never missed an NFL game. He's missed a few NFL snaps. I want to see the Condor out there, but I also want a healthy Max Crosby out there. I don't want some guy who's playing on one leg that realistically is only endangering himself and endangering the longevity of his career. So here's what I'm asking for. I know that if Max plays, he's not going to be 100%. But what I am asking for, what I'm praying for, and what I'm going to ask all y'all to do is click that like button if you just want Max to get back to 100% health. This isn't I want to see Max out there play. Obviously, I want to see Max play. But I want to make sure that he's doing what he needs to do so also he could be the face of this franchise for the next 4, 5, 6 years, however long he wants to be. Max, take care of yourself. But at the same time, I'd love to see you out there, but I do want to see you get back to 100% health. Coming up next here, let's get into some of these keys to victory against Cleveland. Maybe, just maybe, the Raiders will actually listen to this time to what I have to say instead of totally ignoring everything that I did last week. Before I tell you some of the keys to victory up against Cleveland, it's been a minute. But I got to give a shout out to our sponsor here, BetUS. Promo code Raiders125. You're going to be able to get 125% deposit bonus. So the way that I think this is the easiest way to break this down, if you go to chatsports.com/Raiders and you're a first-time depositor, let's say you put down $100, you're going to get $125 for free. So I love BetUS. Chugs and I, we were literally joking because, like, if you remember BetUS, spam BetUS down below because I mean, this was like 4 years ago we had them as a sponsor. They're back in the rotation here. Like, think about if you were to order a pizza and you get an entire pizza for free, and then they throw in an extra, like, slice or two. BetUS is an awesome place to go be able to go, I don't know, put some money where your mouth is on the Raiders, maybe another Week 4 NFL game out there. You can do a lot of different things from top to bottom. Also, I just got word, which might impact the odds in this game. Devontae Adams just popped up on the injury report with a hamstring injury. He was limited, so it's going to be something to watch. But this one, at the time that I'm making this video, just came across our desk here at Chat Sports. Again, chatsports.com/Raiders, promo code Raiders125 for 125% deposit bonus. Coming up here, let's get into it. Raiders keys to victory up against the Cleveland Browns. And the first one, some of these are not going to be all that flashy. A lot of them are going to be duh, but I think like that's kind of where we're at right now with Luke Getsy, this Raiders offense. I need to see Jackson Powers-Johnson and Dylan Parham both starting in this game. If the Raiders take out Parham to start JPJ and they keep Cody Whitehair in there, I might lose my mind. When the Raiders recently put out their brand new updated depth chart, they had Cody Whitehair, Andre James, Dylan Parham, Thayer Munford, Colt Miller, everything you see up on screen. I'm going to anticipate that the Raiders' offensive line is going to be Colt Miller, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Andre James, Dylan Parham, and then DJ Glaze just due to some injuries. But I'm not kidding you, man. If Cody Whitehair trots out onto that field, if both Andre James and Cody Whitehair are starting and Jackson Powers-Johnson and Dylan Parham aren't starting, I'm going to be very concerned and very worried of what the hell did we do all week at practice? Let's go to the next thing. This might be one of the biggest ones. Like, can we just stop running the football just for the sake of running the football? Antonio Pierce spoke to this week kind of about like how difficult it is on your offense when you're 3rd and 7 all the time. And I know that they want to be able to establish the running game with Zamir White. Here's the problem. Zeus has not been good this season. He's not seeing the field well. He doesn't have a lot of confidence, and I don't know if it's because he had that fumble in week 1. I don't know if it's just because he doesn't have any confidence in this offensive line. But when you go back and you watch a lot of that All-22 film, especially in that game against Carolina, Zamir had running lanes. He just point blank, like flat out, miss those running lanes. And if your running backs aren't seeing the ball well or seeing the field well, and your offensive line is not able to block, and what you've been able to do this season is by far the best throwing the football, I know that you want to be a balanced attack. But running the ball just for the sake of running the ball when it is a negative, I can't stand it anymore, and I really hope that the Raiders don't end up doing that this week. Let's go to the next thing here. I want to see the tight ends use a little bit more as H-backs. So what is that exactly? It's where, we're going to do a lot of the 12 personnel. You're going to be on the line. But then if you line up as an H-back, sometimes you line up a little bit further behind the line of scrimmage, or you end up lining up as a fullback. If the Raiders are trying to run the rock, I don't think it's a bad idea to use Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, or Harrison Bryant. Quite frankly, I want to see the Raiders get their tight ends involved a little bit more. I mean, we heard a lot about Michael Mayer, heard a lot about Harrison Bryant. I think if you put your tight ends out there on the field and can use them maybe as an extra chip block, if you need to help out a DJ Glaze, a Colt Miller, if you need to help out maybe your interior line. But also it creates some of that havoc, some of that confusion, where there's going to be some times where you can run the football with Samir and then you're going to have your tight end block, but then also you can swing them out wide. You can do a lot of different things. The Raiders, if you're going to have a boring offensive play caller like Luke Getsy, you got to have a little bit more confusion. I think our tight ends are good enough and athletic enough to be used as H-backs, and I want to see a little bit more of that this week against Cleveland. Let's go to the next one here. Go after cornerback Martin Emerson. I sat down with Matthew Peterson. He's the host of our Brown show here at Chat Sports, and I was like, what's your biggest weakness on defense? He said, minus some of the injuries that we're dealing with right now, go after Martin Emerson. This guy has got a passer rating against him this season at 125.9, an overall PFF grade of 43.0. He has really struggled in the coverage game. So what I'm hoping here is that the Raiders end up putting him on an island. Can we get him one-on-one with Devontae Adams? Can we get him one-on-one with a Brock Bowers? Can we get him one-on-one in any situation? And if I'm Gardner Minshew and if I'm Luke Getsy, I go into that meeting and I go, how can I get some ISO? How can I get one-on-one opportunities? Can I check? Can I audible? Can I go to that situation? Because if you target Martin Emerson, the Raiders will pick up first downs. They will be productive. So I'm really hoping I see that this week from the Silver and Black. So before we get into the final key to victory, we're talking about going after a corner. Who's going to lead the Raiders in receiving yards this week? Are you going to go with Devontae Adams? Are you going to go with Jacoby Myers? Maybe it's Trey Tucker. Maybe it's Brock Bowers. The name that I will always go with, and I know Devontae just popped up on the injury report today. Also, so did Michael Mayer, but that's a personal reason. It sounded like he wasn't injured. It just he was away from practice. I'm going to go with the guy that I think is the best on our team. That's Devontae Adams. If he's not 100%, my answer will change to Brock Bowers. Let's go to the last one here. Raiders got to be able to bring the pressure, but you got to do it in a more creative way. If Max isn't 100%, you can't just do what you did last season and expect to be able to get after the quarterback. Right now, Cleveland has allowed the most sacks in the National Football League. So if you can't get pressure against Deshaun Watson, this offensive line with all the injuries that you have, I think, you got to look at yourself in the mirror here, Rob Leonard, Patrick Graham, and go, how can I be more productive getting after the QB? Because we've been putting Luke Getsy on roast a lot, and Getsy deserves a lot of blame. But again, we didn't really expect this Raiders offense to be very good. We expected this to be a Super Bowl caliber defense, and it's been very far from that. Right now, the Raiders are blitzing at 38.8%, which is fourth best in the National Football League, or fourth most in the NFL, but they have a pressure rate of 20.4. That's dead last. So you're blitzing at the fourth highest rate and getting home, essentially, pressuring at the worst rate in the NFL with the talent that we have. So I'm looking at you, Christian Wilkins. I'm looking at you, Adam Butler, John Jenkins, Tyree Wilson, Max Crosby, Patrick Graham. We got to do a better job of being able to get good pressure on the quarterback, and then that you got to rely on Jack Jones, Trevon Merrick. We got to cover better. We have not done a good job covering this season. If we're going to get after Watson, you better do a good job, because this has been a team that's been horrific protecting their quarterback, and if you can't get against Cleveland, then there's going to be some more concerns that we're going to have to discuss next week. So here's our matchup. Week 4, the Raiders are 2-point favorites at home at Allegiant Stadium. The over-under in this one is 37 points, and I mean, here's the one thing that I've been really thinking about. I thought last week, should you go with the under? It was drastically over. This is going to be one of those old school football games. So before I tell you what my score prediction is, I want to hear from the nation down below. Raiders, Browns, what is your score prediction? That I ended up going with here at Chat Sports. I took the Raiders to win this football game 17-16. But just like I did last week, I was like, I got to go around and I got to ask what my guys at Chat Sports think, what some of the girls think here at Chat Sports of who's ultimately going to end up winning this game, and these were the answers that we got. It was 7 for the Raiders and 3 for Cleveland. Last week, it was 6 for the Raiders, 4 for the Panthers. So hopefully, everybody that voted for the Raiders ends up getting it right, because I'll tell you this, you drop to 1-3, And that's where the panic meter is really, really going to start to grow. Now, if anybody's got any questions about today's show, you can always hit me up on IG. You can always hit me up on Twitter. And make sure you're tuned in to the Raiders-Browns watch party. We're going to get that thing kicked off, I want to say at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So we usually go live an hour before. We're going to go live an hour and 25 minutes before kickoff on Sunday.